Hi everybody, and this is a short presentation about pedagogy at St Leonard's that I put together, especially if you missed my presentation in DECCON. This is the one that sort of replaces that, so you get a handle on everything that I said at that point. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country to the Boon Wurrung people in particular, who are the traditional owners of and the custodians of the land on which we meet here today at St Leonard's College, and repaying their respects to their elders and leaders past, present and emerging. So I started here in August, we're in the middle of lockdown, and despite that, I did manage to meet with about 35 or 40 different staff on Teams, and thank you very much to those people who did that. And what we discussed was very much the pedagogy of St Leonard's, and our pedagogical values is what I called it, what we stand for when it comes to education here at St Leonard's. And it was great discussions. And in fact, it was brilliant to hear that such diversity in the discussions. But what I tried to do was bring it down to one focus, something that essentially we were all agreeing with, that we all thought was really, really important, that we all stood for here at the college. And the first thing of that focus was very much innovation. You know, St Leonard's has always been an innovative school, becoming co-ed right back in the 70s and then taking on the IBDP in the early 80s before most other schools did. So innovation is in the core of our DNA here at the college. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of staff come here and work at St Leonard's is because of this idea that if you want to try something new and give it a go and push the boundaries, then people are open to it. They want to try things, they want to give things a go. So innovative practice seemed to me to be a real core pedagogical value here. Many people also talk to me about the importance of authentic and caring relationships between staff, but also between staff and their students. And really, a lot of people said to me that without those caring relationships, then there was no education happening. Then unless you had that relationship in the first place, students aren't really going to listen to you. There's not going to be that lovely moment of awakening when they're in your class, because everything is built on those authentic, caring relationships. And authenticity is important too. I think there's a real understanding here that as teachers, we are real people in front of our students. We're not putting on a show, that we are who we are, and we like to bring our real life into the classroom, and we like to include our students as part of that. And alongside of that is, of course, is this idea of student agency, empowered and thinking learners. So we want to empower our learners to map out their own learning journeys. We want to make sure that they're learning what they want to learn, that they're passionate, that they're interested in what they're learning. And alongside that, that they're thinking. And that draws on all of that great Ron Richard work of the cultures of thinking, that we're stretching them towards a real conceptual understanding in everything that they do. So to me, it was this diagram, I hope, and thanks a lot to the marketing department for making it look really nice and lovely, but these three interlocking circles that really encapsulated our pedagogical values as teachers here at the college. And therefore, to me, this really is our learning priority. It is this idea that really these are not things that are going to change anytime soon. This is what we always want to see in classrooms, in curriculum design, in everything that's going on here at the college, these three core aspects. But obviously, it's important that we have a way of focusing in on certain things that are important to the college with those priorities, those values in mind. And I've decided to call them this year learning spotlights, the areas that we want to focus. And you'll notice, I won't labor this, that they're pretty much the same as they were last year. We've got a new principal coming in August, and I just started, so I didn't think it was time to really start thinking about brand new foci for the school straight away. So we're going to explore those values through these learning spotlights. Not to mention the fact that we've been under COVID lockdowns, off and on for the past 2 years, so probably haven't got through as much as we would have wanted to get through when we're looking at these three aspects as well. And they are encouraging and developing global competency. And we've put some ideas this year into how we might think about doing that as well. So we've got the concept-based curriculum design that could encourage this global competency. We've got interdisciplinary learning initiatives. Of course, there's the social action and the co-curricular aspect of the learning, the super curriculum, if you like, that's also happening here at St Leonard's, that is just as important often as many of the more traditional subjects that are going on. The second spotlight is student agency, resilience, and well-being. And to me, I mean, that's almost 2 or 3 all in one. And so this idea of student agency can also be enhanced through those interdisciplinary and concept-based learning things that I mentioned for global competency, but also through metacognitive initiatives that have been shown to be really effective. There's all this tremendous work around the cultures of thinking that's been going on here at the college for many years now with Ron Richard. We're looking at differentiation. We're looking at these HPL strategies, high potential learners that Hayley's doing lots of work on as well. And don't forget the pastoral or the work that mentors do and the heads of year, because they can be quite targeted initiatives and projects as well to enhance this resilience and well-being going forward. And the third spotlight is lifelong literacy. And the refinement and consolidation of literacy in the primary years is certainly going to be a focus, I think, of Nicole McGrath, also the head of pedagogy in the junior school. That's one of her focuses that she's going to be looking at going forward. Just looking at how do we consolidate many of these literacy programs that are up and running? How do we make sure that there is this feeling of a through line of alignment across the year levels, so the students are moving their way through that literacy program? But it's certainly not just a primary thing. I mean, I think once we get further forward in year 5, right the way up to year 12, how are we developing this literacy across the curriculum? How are we ensuring, yes, NAPLAN results, of course, is one thing, but really good literacy enhances every single subject. So how are we making sure that that's coming alive in all of the subjects from year 5 upwards? So there are 3 learning spotlights. So we've had our why, our why, and this is Simon Sinek that says that the golden circle of why in the middle. Our why is very much focused on our priorities and our values. And that's your innovation, your empowering and thinking learners, and also your authentic caring relationships. That's why we're doing all of this. Our how for this year is very much focused on those learning spotlights: global competency, student agency, well-being and resilience, and lifelong literacy. So now we get to our what. And our what, if you like, is this process that we're going to be talking about, which is called Innovative Learning Communities, ILCs. And you'll notice ILCs is a bit similar to PLCs, and it is, this is the sort of process that we're going to be using and learning through, but it's drawing on that key value that I've discussed of innovation, to make sure that we are trying new things, that we're not just doing what's always been done, that we're pushing the envelope and we're trying different things here at the college. And these innovative learning communities are what's going to be happening in your learning forums throughout 2022. And I see them as being small groups of about 3 to 5, but you might find that 14 or 15 people actually want to work on a particular area. And if that's the case, then you do subgroups down to 3 or 4 or 5 within that 15, but every now and again, you might want to meet as a 15 and then go off into your subgroups. We want those ILCs to be focused on a learning spotlight. So some sort of project that is enhancing that learning spotlight, whether that be global competency, student agency, literacy. They're pretty broad learning spotlights. So it gives quite a lot of freedom there. And this is the key point. It needs to be on something that you're interested in, that you're quite passionate about. Because in the conversations I've had with many, many staff, what I see is staff are working incredibly hard doing their teaching. Then they're doing their co-curricular activities. And that takes up a lot of time, and that's hard work as well. Then on top of that, they're actually doing something they're really interested in. So they're almost coming up with these projects themselves, and they're exploring things, they're trying new things in the classroom, they're doing things. And then on top of that, they're doing learning forums and triads. And I suppose what I want is that bit in the middle there, which was what you're interested in, what you're passionate, this work that you're already doing. And there's so many little meetings and committees going on around the school that I've been, lucky to be invited to already, and just meeting these people. That needs to become your ILC. So it's not like there's something else that Charles is asking you to do that you don't really want to do, that you're actually using that learning forum time to do the work that you're really interested in seeing a result. And I suppose the only thing we ask is that that's aligned with the school values, of course, which I don't see any issue in, because I think that's certainly values we all share, but also that learning spotlight focus. So it should very much be about what you want to work on and what will practically improve learning in your classroom. So it has to link back to this idea of learning in the classroom, or outside the classroom, by the way, but learning for the students, and make sure that that's a practical outcome. there will be some lesson observation. And obviously, as I mentioned, a lot of people are doing these sort of by themselves. And I think that's the other area that we need to work on, that we're doing this as a collaborative way. And we're collaborating and working together, cooperating and trying different things and chatting to each other about them, because all the research shows that that's the most effective way for these sorts of projects to be successful. And the key there, one, they're working with people relevant to your project. So I would love to see ILCs with some junior staff, some senior staff, some middle school staff. That's great, but it's not something that I would ever want to mandate. I think it's really important that whatever the little ILC that you join and that you create, you're working with people that are genuinely relevant to the project and that can take that forward. And I hope if we focus on relevance, that might also sort out a few of the logistical issues that we've had in the past of trying to meet people at different times, etc. So I'm going to take you through this in a minute, but the ILC will follow a guided design thinking process. It's a bit like a spiral of inquiry, and I'll take you through what that process looks like in just a moment. It'll be held during those learning forum times, and that will give you an opportunity to meet these groups, and also give you an opportunity for us to offer some really targeted PL on those groups once we know what your focuses are. You might get so inspired that you also want to meet outside those targeted learning forum times to really make sure that you achieve what you want to achieve, but that will be up to you, and that will be up to how you're managing your group. The key points are, it must be innovative. Again, we get back to that value. It must be scalable. So whatever you try in your project going forward, perhaps could be something that we implement at a bigger scale. And it must be practical. So I don't want just an academic paper to grow out of this process. I want what has actually happened in the classroom or outside the classroom with the students and their learning. I want that real practical outcome to be underpinning these ILCs. Let me take you through the process. It's, again, as I said, it's not rocket science. It's exactly as you would expect for something like this, but you will start with your vision, with your focus. So we believe in a school where students effectively use feedback. That's a great one if we're thinking about assessment, where all students are catered for within a classroom. So that's a nice differentiation one. So you come up with this sort of almost statement of belief of a general focus for your ILC. What do you really believe in? What do you want to see happening? And this can certainly grow, and I'll take you through a program for this next year when we get to that first learning forum. But this can certainly grow from a problem perhaps that you've already identified, that you're aware of something isn't quite working exactly how I'd like it to work, and I want it to work better. So because that's what I believe in, this is my statement of what I want to do. So that's step one. Step two is to judge that current reality. So that's your data gathering exercise. What is happening right now in that realm? If we've said we believe in a school where students are effectively using feedback to improve their work, are they already? How do you know? What is the current reality? And assessing the data, looking at that current reality is a really important focus. Once you've done that, we get onto the research and knowledge. And this is where you're doing things like you're looking at maybe some external PL, maybe we're organizing some internal PL on feedback and assessment, if we're using that one as an example, but also just what's already going on here. Because, it might be that you're looking at something, I'm in the English faculty, so maybe we're looking at something in English, but actually science has already done something on assessment and feedback, and it's started to work really, really well. So we might want to harvest a bit of what they've done and use that to improve what's going on in our area. So a lot of, there's people at the college with incredible knowledge about education. So I think we need to use those resources as well, not always go to that default of search on Google for an external PL. There's a lot of people who know an awful lot already here. And so I think we lean on that as well. So how do we research? What knowledge do we already have? Who's worked on this? And what do they do already? And I see that process of number 1, 2, and 3, I see us getting through all of that in term 1. So term 1, we've decided on our vision, we've signed up to our ILC, we've started to look at our current reality and understand that, and we've done some research around that current reality. And I'd love us to get through those points. That's why I wanted to float this idea for you in DECCON so you can start thinking about it over the summer. So get those points done in term 1. Term 2 is when we actually do some proper planning. So what do we plan to do to address this current reality? And there's many things that we could do when we're looking at effective feedback and assessment. Is it new stickers in their books that give really clear items of feedback, 2 stars and a wish. Is it a PL on questioning and some real work around how we're using questioning in the classroom to draw out knowledge so that we then can give better feedback back to the students. So we have essentially an ideation session of, well, what do we want to do about this current reality? What do we want to do now we've done this research and we've found out the knowledge in the school? What are we actually going to deliver in the classroom? And I see that planning process happening in term 2. And that's the point where we're starting to plan and we're starting to implement, because then we move on to the monitoring. Once we've planned, we implement, we actually start doing these things in the classroom. And remember, I said ILCs, we want them super practical. So we actually really start delivering these things in the classroom, and we start monitoring that process. We start seeing, how is it working in the classroom? Is the plan working? Hey, maybe it's a disaster. Maybe it goes horribly, horribly wrong. That's fine. That's what we discover. So once we go through that process, we monitor whether or not it's working. That monitoring process as well, that's where the lesson observation will happen. So we do need a lesson observation as part of this whole process. That just ensures that we're keeping things, pretty super practical, and that gives us an opportunity to do some peer observations. So not an appraisal or anything like that, but just one member of your ILC comes into your lesson and has a look at what's going on. And the lesson observation as well will be really guided to focus very much on the ILC, not some general thing. So if you've said you're looking at feedback, what you don't want is then a lesson observation that's focused on behavior management, because that's not what your ILC happens to be focused on at that point. So that will be a really guided process of observation, and it will be really much a colleague and peer observation, which is what all the PLCs use across the state. And finally, we get to that term 4 stage, and that's what I've called our success, being optimistic, but that's when we're starting to assess, how have we done? We've done the planning, we've implemented, we've monitored it. Maybe we've had to pivot, we've seen something not working that well. And now we have to have a measurement of success. And really the reason why it's a full cycle is because we're assessing against that current reality. So that data that we collected right back in step number 2, our current reality, we then have to, when we do our step 6, we then have to compare that data with the new data. What have we discovered after we've implemented this project? And secondly, how are we going to share this? How are we going to actually share this success with the rest of the school? One little great idea is we're looking at doing, maybe in DECCON next year, some sort of little exhibition of what everybody has done. Low key, don't worry, it's not going to be some massive thing, but an opportunity, rather than staff members standing up and saying, I've done this, I've done that. We sit there for an hour and a half and it just goes on and we don't listen, because it's tough to listen to so many people. We actually have an opportunity at the end of the year where we can just wander around, have a cup of tea, maybe some snacks, those sorts of things, and have a chat to different people when we see what their projects are on and if we're interested. And I think something like that in DECCON next year would be just awesome. So many of the models, Kath Murdoch, there's lots of these different PLC models out there. Look at these phases, and you can see we've got this analysis and research phase at the beginning. We've got this ideation phase where we're coming up with this great idea, the implementation phase, and then the assessment and sharing phase at the end. And each of those phases, we'll use the learning forums for a little bit of training where I will take you through a step-by-step process to achieve that phase successfully. But then you'll also have time where you're not, with me talking to you, where you're off in your own groups, where you're discovering things for yourself, you're having chats, you're making different plans, you're pivoting, you're trying different things as things unfold. And I just think it could be a really inspiring and interesting process, especially considering we should all be working on something that we really want to work on, something that will, yes, benefit the school, that is aligned to our spotlights and our values, but also something that we're genuinely interested in going forward. For me, the aims of the ILCs are, yes, this collaborative practice, and yes, this usefulness to our practice. So that's what I'd really love these ILCs to be helping us as a college staff do. For me also, this first year, it's very much about the establishment of the model. And I'm really willing and I would actually really love feedback about the model as you're going through, because you might say, listen, this ideation phase, that's great, but it took too long. We could have actually started a bit earlier, or no, we need a bit more time for this. I don't think this is going to work. I've already had some feedback from people who've seen the model already and started to adapt it. Some great feedback was we have to make sure that there's a reflection aspect in between each one of these things. Another feedback was maybe we're rushing it too much to try and do it in a year. So they're great feedback, but we're going to run it as it is now, try and get this effective model working. And then as things unfold, I'll also see areas that we can adapt and change with the model to make it even more effective. And finally, this idea of creating an innovative environment where new practice is valued, embraced, and enjoyed. And I think St Leonard's has already got that in many ways, but ILCs would be a great way of celebrating that innovative environment where people are trying new things and doing different things. So the next steps, DECCON now, just start thinking, have a bit of a discussion over your morning tea or whatever, and over the summer break, and start thinking, I've been thinking about this for a couple of years, never got around to it. Now I know that I get 6 learning forum meetings to think about it and work on it. This is what I want to do. So hopefully there's a few of those things in your mind already. And JanCon, I'll take you through that first step, and that of course will be with the new staff as well. Then there is a process, a sort of an application form, proposal form, I should say, where people propose ILCs. Look, it might be that you don't get exactly the one that you want to do in the very first year, because we look at it, the academic executive look at it, and we decide we'd really like this person to work in this group instead. Obviously, we can't have a situation where every single person runs their own ILC, because then it would be individual, it wouldn't be a group task. So start chatting with each other to see, are there areas of interest that you could clump together? And then the proposal form will be as a group. You'll be putting that proposal form in. There'll be one main person who's actually submitting it, but then on the form, there's a space where you write down the other people who are interested in working with me are, and then that's where you list their names. So that would be great if you start thinking about that, but that proposal process doesn't go online till February next year. So no rush, plenty of time just to have a chat about it and think about it going forward. As further support, this is the newer teacher professional learning page. Check it out. It does talk about those values as well, and just different things I've done so far here at the college. Down the right-hand side, you'll see the blog, which is still there, which I'm trying to keep updated every now and again. And the Innovative Learning Communities page, which is a school box page and looks like this. It reviews all of those learning spotlights I've already talked about. This little presentation is here, so if you're watching it, you've obviously found this, and other aspects of ILCs I'll be posting on this page as I go forward. Everything is about these values, and that's what I want to draw us back to: the innovation, the authentic caring relationships, and the empowered thinking learners. Now, we're asking ourselves, am I being innovative? Am I nurturing these authentic caring relationships? And am I empowering thinking learners? And that's the key to anything that we do going forward from a pedagogical standpoint at the college. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Love feedback, because this is for all of us. So feedback benefits us all as we start to refine these processes going forward. But thank you very much. And hopefully you've found this little presentation useful.